As someone who'd considered themselves as a bit of a tech nerd, the Honda E does seem to excite my inner geek. From the side view mirrors being replaced by cameras to the interior having elongated displays where you can even display an aquarium. Now the Honda E starts from £27,000 and the model we've got here, the Honda E Advance, starts just shy of £30,000. Now if you'd like more information about the vehicle or indeed the different level trims, do check it out on our website. It'll be down in the description below, and also down there you'll find a link to our Instagram. It's at TotallyEVnet, so we'd very much appreciate a follow if you use that social media platform. So let's kick off this review and talk about the exterior design, which frankly I think is going to divide opinion. Some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. I am in the former group where I feel that it looks a little bit quirky and stands out from the rest of the crowd. It doesn't just look like another car that's on the market. I think Honda have done a great job in designing the car from its cut shaped from the front and the back, and also in terms of the headlights and tail light design. I think it looks pretty nice. Now from the side you've got 17-inch or 16-inch alloys that come as standard. The reason you've got two choices is because apart from the looks, the 16-inch alloys will be a little bit better for efficiency. Here we've got the 17-inch alloys and that will decrease range by about 10 to 15 miles. So something you might want to consider when it comes to actually customizing the look of at least the Honda E Advance. Now from the side the car has a futuristic design, and that's truthfully aided by the use of side view cameras rather than side view mirrors. Aside from the actual look and the inner geek that it might fulfill, it actually serves a purpose. It reduces the drag coefficient and according to Honda means it improves efficiency by about 3.8%. Now the only thing to consider however with these side view mirrors is that cyclists and bikers often use that as a reference point to see if anyone's going to be exiting a vehicle. So if you do own this car, I hope you're going to be extra vigilant, or even tell your passengers that if you're going to be exiting the vehicle, make sure you double or triple check your surroundings before opening up a door. Now elsewhere, the door handles are also aerodynamically designed whereby they're concealed within the car. It's not the first time we've seen this, but it's just worth bearing in mind it's the same case with the Honda E. When you were to open the car or even walk up to the car when you have the advanced key entry, then what you'll see is that it props open. You can also manually open this if you so wish by pushing on one of the sides. In terms of the rear doors, as there are 4 doors in total over here, it's built into the actual door frame. Again, pretty intuitive and no issues to report over here. The charging port is at the front of the car and can be activated by pressing on the key remote, and it'll reveal a CSS and Type 2 ports, and we'll be talking about this in the charging section of the review. In terms of color, the one that we've got over here costs £550, while if you were to go for its standard look, which is a yellow type of design, that comes for free. So worth considering if you want to personalize the car, or indeed if you like the blue design that we've got over here, it'll cost you an additional extra on your final bill. Now as we move inside the vehicle, the tech really does come to life. From the dual elongated 12.3-inch displays that span across the dashboard to the 8.8-inch instrument cluster and even the 6-inch dual side view cameras that you got. Now a little note on the side view cameras, they're actually pretty well placed whereby you're having to glance less to the left or right when it comes to checking your surroundings, making it just a little bit easier and therefore a little bit safer when it comes to not taking your eyes off the road. Now as for those dual 12.3-inch displays, it's pretty comprehensive. You can customize the look of it and tailor around different apps, and furthermore the way that it actually integrates with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay is actually really well done. In my case with Android Auto, I find it to integrate extremely well, to the point where I would say it's one of the best integrations of Android Auto in a vehicle. The main reason behind that is because you get the directions and navigation that also show up on your instrument cluster, which normally isn't the case with most cars, where they are relying on their built-in GPS navigation system to display that information on your instrument cluster. If you've owned a car, you'll know exactly what I mean by this. So while it might not be like the Polestar 2 where that's got perfect Google integration, I think what Honda have achieved over here with at least Android Auto is fantastic and should be commended. Now as for the instrument cluster, it's really bright and vivid, and furthermore shows you your power and charge that you're using, so therefore giving you an indication of how much energy you might be recouping back into the battery pack. Speaking of which, there is a button on the center console which instigates the one pedal approach. It's literally a shoe that's pressing down on a pedal. Now the one pedal approach can be customized through the flappy paddles in terms of how much regenerative braking you want to use. It's just worth bearing in mind that each time you step inside the car, it will be disabled by default, and if you were to enable the mode, it will go default to its maximum mode, which I don't personally mind, but some people might be a little bit frustrated if they say use level 1 or 2 mode instead of level 3. Now in terms of the center console, it is pretty well designed, but it doesn't have a traditional gear selector or even a rotary dial. Instead, you've got buttons: parking, reverse, neutral, and drive. To me, it's pretty intuitive. Specifically when they're selected, they're kind of eliminated as well, and I have no issues whatsoever, but it might take a little bit of getting used to, specifically when you're reaching down for something which doesn't exist. Now, as for the design of the cabin, here I think Honda have really tried to emphasize that they're a Japanese automaker, and I've got no issue with that whatsoever because it feels serene inside. If you want to take it a step further, if you're at a standstill, you can even enable aquarium view, which basically shows up some fishies on your dashboard, which I find a little bit funny. But actually, when I was sat having my lunch inside the Honda E, what I found is that it actually just provided a little bit of, say, little entertainment to my eyes when I had basically a concrete wall instead to look at. Now, continuing with the theme of design, I really like the steering wheel. While it might seem a little bit big at first and you might think this small size car would actually fit more of a small size steering wheel, the fact that it's, well, just really nice to handle, no matter the size of your hands, will be a really nice welcome feel. Now, in terms of buttons on the steering wheel, on the left hand side you've got media controls, and on the right hand side you've got these safety systems whereby you can initiate a cruise control or, let's say, lane keep assist. The thing that I felt was a little bit weird and that's missing is there's no play and pause button. Instead, you're going to have to revert to pressing on the infotainment system, and again, there's no button even on the dashboard to initiate play and pause, which is slightly a shame and can be a little bit cumbersome, specifically when it comes to longer distance drives. Speaking about media, the car has 6 speakers by default. In the Honda E Advance, you get 8 speakers instead, which is really bolstering in terms of its overall audio performance because it has a dedicated subwoofer and a center speaker, which essentially takes the overall wattage from 180 watts up to 376 watts. Now, if you're interested in a dedicated audio review and want to know how it actually sounds and actually hear for yourself, do check out the dedicated review of the audio systems that's comprised within the Honda E. It'll be down in the description below or on your pop-up banner. In a nutshell, what I will say is that it will excite most people, although it is a bit lackluster in terms of its mid-range. And finally, I should also mention that despite it being a very tech-centric car, Honda has preserved the physical climate controls, which is very much a appreciated factor, at least for me. I think it's just a lot more intuitive to use physical knobs or buttons rather than having to rely on a touchscreen or a different type of interface. Now, as for the seats, the car will take 4 occupants in total. There's no middle seat over here, and there's also no sort of compartment which you can bring down as an armrest. Now, the 4 seats themselves are actually really comfortable. They're very cushiony and I've got no issues whatsoever. Even at the back, it feels pretty soft, which is not the same that could be said about some of its competitors. Now, the front seats themselves are manually adjustable. Unfortunately, there's no electronic adjustments over here, and at the rear, all you can adjust is the headrest. In terms of the headroom and legroom, at the back you'll feel a little bit hemmed in, and that's because of its roof. It feels a little bit short, and therefore, as someone who's just under 6 foot, I feel that if someone's a little bit taller, in other words 6'2" to 6'4", I think they'll struggle to fit comfortably in here. On the plus side, there's a good amount of legroom, and at the front there's no issues, be it for headroom or legroom. So if you're going to be a tall sized individual looking to drive the car, then you're not going to have an issue whatsoever. Now, in terms of storage, at the back you've got 171 litres of space and 571 litres when you pop down the seats, which isn't bad, but if you compare it to some of its competitors, the Honda E is, well, pretty tight at the rear boot storage, so worth bearing that in mind. What I will say is that you might fit, let's say, a small sized cabin luggage, while when you do pop down the seats you could potentially fit in 1 or 2 large sized luggages. Now, to round off, in terms of practicality, you've got 2 USB slots at the rear, which is nice to see, and at the front you've got, oddly, an HDMI input, you've got 2 USB slots, and also you've got the cigarette lighter. On the Honda E Advance, you've even got a 3-pin 230 volt socket, which will be handy if you want to charge, let's say, a smartphone or let's say a laptop, which requires a bit more power. Quite odd to see on a vehicle, but nevertheless will be pretty handy for some people. Now, while all the tech and gizmos included in this car might be quite fun, ultimately this is a vehicle, so how is it to drive? Well, first off, what I want to talk about is maneuverability, and here the Honda E is absolutely ridiculous, and that's namely due to its turning circle. So here the car is extremely easy to make tight maneuvers, and here you can see doing a 360-degree turn is, well, seamless and very easy to execute. The same could be said when it comes to parking, given its sensors at the back and making the car just all that little bit easier to put in a tight parking space, or even when it comes to the Honda E Advance, using the parking pilot, which basically does parking for you. Now, in terms of its driving comfort, the car is just really good. Here the seats are very cushiony and soft, and its steering wheel makes it very easy not only to perform maneuvers but also to drive around at speed on country roads. Now, speaking of speed, the car will get from 0 to 60 in around 8.3 seconds. From my measurements with the V-Box Sports, where I measured the actual 0 to 60 time, I actually got it to achieve around 7.83 seconds 0 to 60, which is pretty impressive given that the conditions weren't perfect. Now, in terms of performance, the rear-wheel drive, which is operated by a single motor, dispatches around 151 horsepower. It's equivalent to around 113 kilowatts. Here the car has 315 Newton meters of torque at your disposal, no matter if you choose the advanced or the non-advanced variant of the Honda E. As a result, when it comes to inner city driving, you do get that instant amount of acceleration, and it does bring a lot of joy to your face. The thing which really does stick out for me, however, is how well the car is to drive and how well planted it is when it comes to country roads. Driving at around 50 miles to 60 miles around bends on country roads, I found this car, unlike all the other cars I've driven in terms of this category range, really does feel very well planted on the ground. I would say it very much competes with the Mini Electric in this respect, in giving me that driver's feel. Truthfully, that's the thing that really sticks out for me, that the Honda E is unlike most city cars out there. It just feels just so great to drive. When you put your foot down, you get instant amount of acceleration. That also is leading to the fact that its accelerating pedal is very responsive, and the same could be said about its brake pedal. It just feels really nice, and there's no complaints here to be had about the driving experience that one gets from the Honda E. And very much on the subject of driving experience, cabin noise is pretty much kept to a minimum. And while those side mirrors are going to make a slight bit of difference, truthfully, it really comes from the actual tires or even the wind being deflected on the A-pillars. And here, there's very little noise. It actually feels serene and kind of fits with this Japanese theme of having a serene interior. The Honda E really does excel in this department. Again, in comparison to a lot of its competitors, and even including the Mini Electric, which, you know, is a driver's kind of car, just can't compete with the serene feel that you get on the Honda E. Now, when it comes to safety, the car has a whole host of different technologies built in to make you feel a little bit safer on the road. From lane keep assist, which actually works pretty well, to cruise control, and even when it comes to rear driver assists. For example, when you're pulling out of a parking spot, the rear cross traffic alert allows you to feel a bit more at ease when you're pulling out of a busy parking lot. The thing which really gets me in terms of the element of safety is the loss of wing mirrors, which have now come inside from the 6-inch displays. As I mentioned before, it means that you're glancing just slightly less at your side mirrors, and here the screens are very bright, adjustable in terms of brightness, and just make it all that little bit more, well, safer when it comes to, well, taking a turn, or seeing if there's a motorcycle to your side, or even checking your blind spot. Furthermore, the camera can be changed from its normal viewing angle to a wide angle lens, sorry, and therefore means, again, you can get a little bit of a larger field of view at the result of a slightly cropped image. Now, the biggest sticking point of this vehicle is its all-electric range, as we're passing a Tesla, which is pretty ironic. Here, the car has up to 137 miles. On the Honda E Advanced, that's only applicable if you have the 16-inch alloys. In this respect, we've got the 17-inch alloys, and as a result, that brings down range to around 125 miles quoted range. In reality, when it comes to mixed driving conditions, what you'll find is the car will yield around 90 miles of all-electric range, which truthfully, given its class, is not impressive. Yes, it is a city-based car, and let's say the Mini Electric will offer around 10 to 20 miles more on mixed driving conditions. It's still pretty disappointing to see a car in this day and age offering such limited mileage. Meaning the sticking point for people coming to an all-electric car where you've got range anxiety, well, it's very much present in the Honda E. It's just not going to really excite you in terms of its range. Long distance trips are pretty much a thing of, well, luxury. On the plus side, in terms of charging up the car, it's got a 50 kilowatt input, which is achieved by its CSS port. So therefore, 0 to 80% can be achieved in around 30 minutes. If you put it on a Type 2 port, it will take significantly longer, given it goes at 7.4 kilowatts instead. But that is very readily available from wallbox chargers and even public chargers. Now, aside from charging from the front port of the car, you can also recoup energy via regenerative braking. As I mentioned before, the flappy paddles allow you that adjustment, and the button at the center console enables or disables these one pedal approach. I would have liked if the one pedal approach was enabled by default, but alas, that's not the case in the Honda E. You'll have to enable it each time you step inside. What I do like, however, is the fact that on its highest regenerative braking mode, you can come to a complete standstill. So this is me taking my foot off the pedal, and you can see I come to a complete standstill, which is quite nice and, well, a little bit different from some of its competitors, which will come down to around 4 miles an hour and not come to a complete stop. So on the whole, what do I make about the Honda E, or specifically the Honda E Advanced that we've got over here that can be found just under £30,000? Well, truthfully, there's a lot going for it. It's got a quirky design, there's plenty of tech that's built in. It also is plenty of fun to drive and will bring a lot of joy to people's faces. The problem here is boot space is somewhat limited, and furthermore, its all-electric range will be a major sticking point for a lot of individuals. At 80 to 90 miles on a single charge, it's pretty disappointing, specifically for people who are anti-EVs that think that most cars will get 500 to 600 miles on a single tank of petrol. 80 to 90 miles is really not going to convert them. Now, that's just my thoughts about it, or of course the birds that are over here, that's what their thoughts are. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are, however, and if you do like this video, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to see more, and of course favourite and share to always help the channel grow. I've been Chris from TotallyEV. Take care and bye-bye.